Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about Capricorn and their personality. And yes, it does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Well, anyway, people, first thing I'll look at as far as Capricorn, their personality. Capricorn, of course, could be very ambitious. In some people, it can go a step further in some isolated cases, such as a ruthless ambition to attain their wants. But Capricorn generally is very industrious, very hardworking, and will pursue their goals in a very methodical manner. They may not attain success like really early in life, but they often do attain it through a lot of hard, laborious work, and really their method is very like step by step in terms of getting to the top. It's slow, it could be methodical, but they often do attain their goals and their aspirations. Now, Capricorn can also be very career-oriented. They're often dominated by their career endeavors, and it is something that they often put a lot of strong focus on. Capricorn being very ambitious, they are strongly connected with their career. They often will work a lot more hours than the average person will, because they just have such a strong work ethic in them in many cases. And Capricorn too could be very concerned with the stature in life, and they often, as far as a significant other, they may often look for somebody that has at least a comparable stature in life. They like to, often people that they may get involved with as far as a serious romantic relationship, somebody that has their goals and somebody that has certain ambitions in life. They really generally may not be attracted to people that may give off a sense that they're lackadaisical, they're lazy or lethargic, or don't really have many ambitions. They want somebody that is similar to them in that respect, and often can be a comparable income, because Capricorn's not going to be the kind of person that's going to marry somebody and then have that person mooch off of them, because Capricorn is a very no-nonsense sign, and if they're bringing in certain money, they often want the other person to bring at least a comparable amount as well. Now, I go back to the no-nonsense thing. There's like Capricorns really can be very tough-minded and very tough people. There's an acquaintance I had known one time where he had worked in some retail store. He had Sun in Capricorn, and he had a customer that came in that was being very rude and belligerent to him. And basically what the Capricorn Sun man did is he turned around and he said, "I'm going to count to 10. And you better be out of the store by the time I count to 10. There's going to be trouble brewing." When he turned around to count to 10, the guy had disappeared. And I mean, Capricorn just really they generally don't put up with anything from anybody. I worked for a Capricorn Sun person one time, and Sun and Capricorn man. And he had talked to me one time, and he thought he had called me out on something. I thought that was unprofessional. I didn't think it was really that big of a thing, but he felt otherwise. Capricorns are really, as far as things connected with business and work and professionalism, they are very tough as well. And he had stated to me, if I didn't have a doctor's note, then I don't need to be coming back in the next day or whatever. So it was just one of those things. And anyway, Capricorns can often be very disciplined. They're unlike, say, Aries can be very impetuous and impulsive. It can often make rash decisions impulsively. But Capricorn, like what they'll do is a lot of times they'll just wait a situation out, and they could hold back for a while on things and not react impulsively or say something that they may regret later on. I mean, Capricorn is the kind of person, like I could give you a good example what Capricorn say in contrast to, say, Aries could act in a situation, where the disparity would be. Now, let's say if you have an Aries that's working at a convenience store, and a car goes into the lot, and they park their car, and they get gas put in it, and then what happens is that the person that gets the gas walks away from the pump and walks away from the place where they're supposed to pay it. Well, Aries might run out right away and say, well, what's going on? And confront him, well, why aren't you paying this? But Capricorn would be the type to let the situation play out and make sure the person just wasn't stopping at some other place temporarily before they went into into the spot where they're supposed to pay the money. So it's one of those things where Capricorn will often, because they're so disciplined, they could play the waiting game. Whereas like if you take an Aries, for example, can be very impulsive and impetuous and really not always let a situation play out and jump to conclusions. I guess what I'm saying through that example is that Capricorn's not the type generally that's going to jump to conclusions on a situation or somebody. They'll sit back, be patient, let the situation play out, and go from there. And Capricorn is often very premeditative. They like to plan way ahead of time, where a lot of other people may not. Because of this premeditation, they could be very good. They could work in something where a lot of planning is involved. It's a lot of planning ahead of time. They got their aspirations and goals often set way ahead of time, way before other people, a lot of the other signs will. And they're not really so much about spontaneity. They are strongly about the premeditative nature, like the other two earth signs, Taurus and Virgo. Now, another thing with this sign too is they could often have very good business acumen in sense, and very astute in business. Now, the late great George Steinbrenner, who was the owner of the New York Yankees, he helped them win a number of World Series titles, and he had a Capricorn ascendant, I believe at 29 degrees, the full culmination of the sign. Imagine that. And I mean, he was very shrewd in his business dealings, and even though Capricorns could be very economical, he didn't have hesitation about being extravagant from time to time to get the marquee players in order to help the Yankees have the best team possible out there. So, and another thing I think is interesting too is that Capricorns are often very single-minded, and they often could be like a specialist in something, that they emphasize one thing and don't really deviate from it as far as something connected with the profession. Like, for example, former NBA player Dennis Rodman, I mean, when you play basketball, I understand you do various things, but his main emphasis was on rebounding. It was like a focal point with him, and he has a Capricorn ascendant. And there's something about Capricorns where they'll emphasize and home in on one certain thing, and they're going to do whatever they can to be the best they can at it. Now, I don't believe Dennis Rodman was necessarily the best rebounder in NBA history, but he was one of the best ones out there, at least during the time that he was playing. And really, the thing too about Capricorn is, remember, it is ruled by Saturn. And it's really can be that sad sign. They could become despondent a little bit easier than the other signs on average. Capricorn can be that sign that can succumb to depression more often than others. I think some people believe Taurus is the one that really inclines toward that more so than the other signs, but I don't really agree with that. I think it's actually Capricorn being ruled by Saturn. Taurus can be a close second in that department, but I think Capricorn is the one that becomes melancholy a little bit more so on average. It's compared to the other zodiac signs. And this sign can often appear undemonstrative to others. Capricorns are not necessarily cold or callous, but the thing about them is that they could be very reserved in expressing their emotions and feelings, and especially when they're around others. They have this thing about really not showing this. It's just not generally in their nature, but the sign is certainly not devoid of feeling, and all signs have certain propensity for expressing emotions. And when I look at the earth signs compared to water signs can express emotions, I believe, more freely and easily in contrast to the earth signs. But the earth signs, I think, their emotions are more protracted and they're more sustained, I believe, is that the difference. And anyway, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Capricorn and their personality. And stay tuned next time where I'll be talking about Aquarius and their personality. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone. Because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.